Going to share some of my knowledge with the best coaches. Bucky Brooks is laughing at that. Played in the NFL, scout now NFL Network. Our friend NFL Network analyst, Bucky Brooks. I want to start. A couple days ago, Brett Favre said, "You know what? I watch Mahomes and I watch Baker, and those guys look a lot like me." I see Baker, and I see somewhere between Drew Brees and Case Keenum. I see Mahomes, and I see a very coachable guy with a huge arm. I don't really see Favre. I see a lot more precision. So what do you make of all these Favre as Mahomes? Comparison.
I think he hit the nail on the head when he talks about both guys, but particularly Pat Mahomes. Part of the reason why Andy Reid wanted to go and get Pat Mahomes in the draft is because he reminded him of Brett Favre. And I think what happened, Brett Favre played so long that we kind of forget how special he was at one point of his career. I was there in the mid-90s, 95, 96, 97. He won 3 straight MVP awards. He was magical. And in fact, the way that Pat Mahomes played last year was the way that Brett Favre played in the mid-90s. And I think because we're so far removed from that, we can't see that comparison. But when you talk to Andy Reid learned how to coach Pat Mahomes through his experience with Brett Favre by letting him kind of push the envelope in practice that first year of the rookie season. He encouraged him to really make all of those throws. Then that second offseason, they then started teaching him how to play the position. So they allowed him to still be kind of the gunslinger, but they taught him how to rein it in so he could play winning football. And
I think gunslinger is romanticized. Is a gunslinger a winner in today's lexicon?
I think a gunslinger can be a winner, but I think you have to understand when to turn it on and when to turn it off. There is a way that you have to play winning football. When we look at Tom Brady probably physically has diminished some, but mentally he's still at the top of his game, because if he gets into the fourth quarter and the game is tight, he knows how to win it. And so there's something to be said for being a gunslinger, but also for being a winner.
So Big Ben to me is a gunslinger, and yes. I think his accuracy concerns me, and I think sometimes his decision-making. So I consider him today's gunslinger, and Ben to me has underachieved the last 4 years.
He's underachieved some, but here's what I'll say about Ben Roethlisberger. Todd Haley was a really good coach and mentor to Ben Roethlisberger when they were together. Because if you remember what Ben Roethlisberger was prior to Todd Haley, he was a gunslinger. He ran around. He made plays. He was kind of the physical player and presence at quarterback. Todd Haley comes in and is like, look, you have to play a little more controlled. We have to kind of have a controlled passing game so we can be efficient. He learned how to play that way, and I think his game went to the next level. However, at the end of the day, the reason why we continue to celebrate the Drew Breeses, the Tom Bradys, because they know how to win the game in the fourth quarter. There's a method to winning games. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, some of the other quarterbacks have mastered that, and that's what all quarterbacks, particularly the young ones, they have to learn how to win the game by playing the game the right way in certain parts of it.
55 NFL coaches and executives took part in a poll for Mike Sando. He listed the quarterbacks in Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. By and large, I agreed with it. I love Carson Wentz, but he hasn't been healthy enough. I'd put him in a Tier 2. I do think he's a Tier 1 talent. Cam Newton was a Tier 3. I've been saying this for years. He's too distracted, and I think he needs a lot of help to win. So Tier 1 is Rodgers, Brady, Brees, Mahomes, Luck, Rivers, Big Ben, Wilson. And I think that's about the order. I like Russell Wilson more than I like Rivers or Big Ben, but I'm okay with it. Tier 2 is guys, according to this, that they've got a hole in their game. They need more. I agree with this. Matt Ryan, Wentz, Stafford, Watson, Goff, Baker. Do you have any problems with Tier 2?
We have to go to Tier 3 before I have a problem, because I would have a problem with some of those guys ranking ahead of some of the guys that
Okay, let's go Tier 3. The one that jumps out to me, I think Garoppolo is a Tier 2 guy, but I think with only 8 starts in San Francisco, it's hard for people to wrap their brain and their arms around what he is. I am a fan of Garoppolo. I think mostly Tier 3 is right on. Is there something that bothers you about Tier 3?
Well, when we put Matthew Stafford in the mix, and I think we put Baker already as a Tier 2 quarterback, I would just say Baker Mayfield and that crew, they went 7-9. So he played well. He had a rookie record, 27 passing touchdowns. However, if we always talk about measuring quarterbacks on wins, he has to get some signature wins before I would rank him ahead of a guy like a Cam Newton. Because say what we want to about Cam Newton. Cam Newton has played at an MVP level. Cam Newton has led his team to a Super Bowl. We have seen Cam Newton be a mercurial talent in this league. Does he play the game like the traditional players at the position? No. But when he's playing right and he's healthy and he's able to do some things, he certainly is a guy that can play at that tier 1, tier 2 level.
What do you make of Garoppolo? I like Garoppolo. Do you?
I like Garoppolo, but I think here's the issue that I have with Jimmy G. He was kind of anointed as a guy on that run that he had very early in San Francisco at the end of the season. When they won some games, he got hot. However, in that same offense, we have seen Kyle Shanahan elevate the talents of others that have played the position. Nick Mullins was a very solid player for the 49ers last year. When we go back and we look at the way that Jimmy Garoppolo started, he struggled a little bit. Sub 60% passer, only 5 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. This is a make-or-break year for Jimmy Garoppolo because the San Francisco 49ers can get out of that deal in 2020 during the offseason. So he has to play well. I think he will play well because it has an upgraded cast around him, but I'm not ready to say that he is more than a Tier 3 quarterback.
Okay, would you leave if somebody offered you a GM job in the NFL? Would you bail on broadcasting to be a GM?
Oh, well, I think so. I think the right organization, you absolutely have to.
Okay, so I want you to be a GM.
Okay.
The GM of the New York Giants. My theory on aging quarterbacks. Pull the Band-Aid off. It's hurt, but the healing starts very quick. This is what the Colts did with Peyton Manning. They knew he was good. They knew he'd win games. This is what the Green Bay did with Favre. They knew he still had stuff in the tank. Didn't want him to go to Minnesota, but he ended up there. New York is struggling. They can't rip the Band-Aid off with Eli. So when I see his erosion, and you told me as an organization Daniel Jones was worth a number 6 pick, and now this morning the story is there'll be no competition in camp. Timeout. So you're either telling me you reached on Daniel Jones or you're deeply concerned about how this lands in New York with your older fan base and Eli. Because if I look at Eli's numbers and Daniel's a 3-year starter who you said is the next great player, something doesn't jibe with me.
Something doesn't jibe. So we have romanticized Eli Manning. He's a 2-time Super Bowl winner, won multiple MVPs. He is a legend in the New York area for the success that the team has had while he's been the franchise quarterback. And David Gettleman privately had told some people when he was at Carolina that Eli Manning is the prototypical franchise quarterback that you need to have. And so, as they say, loving eyes can never see. He still sees Eli as the guy that won 2 Super Bowls, regardless of the diminishing game and the way that he's kind of fallen off the cliff the last few years. He still sees that guy as the one that has been able to hoist the Lombardi Trophy twice. I think he let us know what he was thinking with Daniel Jones before they even selected Daniel Jones. He talked about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Pat Mahomes model and how that worked out for Kansas City, where Alex Smith was entrenched. They drafted Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes sat on the bench for a year. He takes over, and away the Chiefs go. I believe that they're trying to use the same kind of plan in New York. Eli Manning is going to be comfortable. You can be our franchise quarterback this year. And then depending on how you play this year, maybe we hand it off to Daniel Jones or maybe we continue with you. But either way, Eli Manning was going to get every opportunity to be the starting quarterback in New York.
Bucky Brooks joining us. I want to go to the Zeke situation. So let's start with Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon's a smaller back. They were 4-0. Last year when he didn't play, including beating Kansas City and Pittsburgh. Since Anthony Lynn has been given the job, all the Chargers running backs are now averaging over 4 yards a carry. I would struggle giving Melvin Gordon a long-time contract. I'd front-load it if I had to. But you know the analytics, Bucky. So Melvin's a smaller back. He's been hurt. There's some microfracture history. Mm-hmm. College football gives us a lot of running backs every year in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round. Would you give Melvin the contract?
It's 6 on one hand, half a dozen on the other. Here's what I believe is going on in the National Football League, and we've seen it in drafts the last few years. You talked about finding bargain or value running backs in the 3rd or 4th round. I don't believe that's the way the league is trending. I believe what the decision makers are doing, the really smart people, and we always talk about the Patriots being the trendsetters. Let's look at what's happened in the league. We've seen a number of running backs go in the 1st round, and all of those running backs have pretty much hit. The only one in the last 3 or 4 years that maybe we're questioning would be Rashad Penny. But Christian McCaffrey has been a stud. Saquon Barkley lived up to it. Todd Gurley, Zeke Elliott, all those guys have been stars. So what you do is when you draft a running back high, you get to control the running back for 6 or 7 years throughout his prime without really having to give him big money. So, yes, you have to give him significant draft capital. But, for instance, Josh Jacobs was drafted by the Oakland Raiders in the 1st round. 4-year deal, $11 million. If he turns out to be a blue-chip player, hey, I'm playing my blue-chip player maybe $2.5 million. that's a bargain. If he gets to the end of that deal, we kick in the 5th-year option. If he's still playing at a high level, we can do the franchise tag. So for all of his prime, we can ride him into the ground and never have to give him a second deal. I believe more teams are dribbling out the shot clock on running backs, drafting them early without really thinking we're ever going to commit to giving these guys another deal. It's something that Jimmy Johnson said a long time ago. That's the way you treat a running back position. Draft him high, ride him till the wheels fall off. Last year of the deal, draft another one high and move on. That's, I think, what teams are trying to do.
So I have said 2 years out, I've got judicial issues every other offseason with Zeke. I do think the offensive line in Dallas has helped Zeke, although I do consider him an elite player. I think you can get a haul for him. I think Dallas has shown a history in recent years of drafting very, very